Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is the English translation of the Majlis of Hazrat MAULANA QAMAR Sahib Damat Barakatuhum, which took place on Tuesday morning at Baitul Azkar in Wasiabad, Allahabad, UP, India. Tuesday, the 21st of Sha'ban, 1444, corresponding with the English date, 14th of March, 2023. Hazrat Wala starts off this majlis by quoting the ayat of the Quran Majid, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah, fadkhuli fi ibadi, wadkhuli jannati. So here, Hazrat Wala is quoting and reading from the kitab. Hazrat Wala says, this kitab is magnificent. Hazrat Tanvi, when he went in the khidmat of Hazrat Haji Imdadullah, Haji Imdadullah then said to him that Ashraf Ali, translate this kitab, it will be of great benefit to the people. Hazrat Tanvi said that I went to go and learn, but it was the hukam of my sheikh, so I started then translating, and as I went along, I would translate and show it to Hazrat Haji Imdadullah, and then he would remark and put the fawaid on there. So much so that the master of the Urdu language, Urdu Adab, he was an adib at Darul Uloom Deoband, he even went on to say, a translation of this caliber could have not been done by anyone other than Hazrat Tanvi. One day, Hazrat Wala is quoting an incident. In the Khanqa of Hazrat Tanvi, there was a person who was weeping profusely. He cried and he cried. Nevertheless, when Hazrat Tanvi engaged him and asked him about that, he said, I'm crying out of the fear of Jahannam. So Hazrat Tanvi then said to him that, rather reprimanded him, saying that was Jahannam specifically created for you only, and nobody else will go into it other than you. It was just that calm was restored, and his halat and his spiritual state came to that of i'tidal and a balance. We then started, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib is saying, we started then talking amongst ourselves that who from us can actually do this or is capable of doing that. Hazrat just said that, and the person, his halat came right. But it wasn't just saying that. What type of mehnat and mashaqqat and level he had reached, that for him to just say that one word, that was enough for that person. Hazrat Wala then goes on to even quote another example of a certain person who comes to the Shaykh, and he says to him that I became a shaitan. I became a shaitan. So then the Shaykh said, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Due to which that murid stood up, ran to the wall, smashed his head in the wall, and he died. Hazrat Haji Imdadullah rahimahullah remarks, and he says, ना हक शेख नाकिस ने एक आदमी का जान ले लिया. ना हक, without any reason, the weak sheikh, incomplete, novice, took the life of an innocent person. Had he told the person, oh, you have become shaitan, don't worry, shaitan is also Allah's. Allah created shaitan. If he said that to him, that qabz, when a person is feeling so withdrawn, demotivated, down, that would have been removed, and he would have been blessed what must. So Allah Ta'ala give us good understanding of this path to Him. So here Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is saying that when He created the earth, rather Sheikh Ibn Ata is saying, I heard my Ustad, Sheikh Abul Abbas, saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the earth upon water, and then the earth was not stable. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then pegged it by means of the mountains. So Allah ta'ala says in the Quran regarding this, وَالْجِبَالَ أَرْسَاهَا. Similarly, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the nafs was also wobbly. The nafs was also restless. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then entrenched and pegged this nafs by means of the mountains of the brain and good sense and aqal. Khair. So that banda and servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose aqal and his mind and thinking is to a complete extent, thus then would his nur become so vast. And when this happens, sakina then comes down to him from his Rabb. When sakina comes down to him from his Rabb, then he will not be restless anymore. And he will take his attention away from the means and put it on to the creator of the means. So the end result would be he will become mutma'inna and contented, khamidatan, sakinatan, completely composed, completely full of peace in front of the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, established and understanding well the taqdeer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, handing himself over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because of his knowledge of this particular ayat, that he understands that Allah ta'ala is looking at him. أَوَلَمْ يَكْفِ بِرَبِّكَ أَنَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٍ. Is it not sufficient that your Rabb is witnessing everything? So he then, after the stage, becomes deserving that he be called from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this wonderful welcome, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, O the contented soul. O the contented soul. Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyya. Come back to your Rabb, well pleased yourself and well pleasing unto him. Fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. Enter you then amongst my honored slaves, and enter you my paradise. You enter my paradise. Now in this particular ayat, there are great features and there are great characteristics regarding this particular nafs, the nafs mutma'inna. Now we need to know, first, we understand from this here that we have three types of nafs. One is nafs ammara, the nafs that continuously commands us to do that which is towards the direction of sin. Then the nafs lawwama, the nafs, the rebuking nafs. A person does something wrong, then his nafs rebukes him. How come you done this? Why did you do that? And the nafs mutma'inna. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not address any one of these nafs except the nafs mutma'inna. Allah ta'ala says, speaking about the nafs ammara, inna nafsa la ammaratum bisu. There's no khitab and address here. Allah says about the nafs lawwama, wala uqsimu bin nafs lawwama. However, when he comes and he speaks about the nafs mutma'inna, he addresses that particular nafs by saying, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, O the contented nafs. So here, to be happy with the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then Allah will make us happy by means of his rewards. This is the highest stage. Look at this dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma inni as'aluka sihhata wal iffata wal amanata wa husna al khulq wal rida bil qadr. Being happy what Allah ta'ala has destined. That is a very great and a high stage. You know, Sheikh Abdul Haq Muhaddis Dehlvi is a passing away, and the voice from the unseen comes. The same khitab from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even so much that the people present there listen to it. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna. And then they even ask, well, what is it? What has he done that he deserves this? And what is understood and what's the crux of it is that on one occasion, Hazrat Shaykh Abdul Haq Muhaddis Dehlvi went to buy some ghee. Nevertheless, he brought it home, and while using it, he finds one chawanni, he finds one coin in there, a meager amount. But he says, but I purchased the ghee. This could have most probably fallen into the bucket mistakenly by the person who was busy making this the owner. So he takes it and he returns it. And it was because of that he reached such a high stage, or he was blessed. Now we also learn from this here such importance to mu'amalat and that of clarity in our transactions. On one occasion, Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala, despite being the Khalifa, had to come to court because somebody laid a charge or put a case against him. Nevertheless, when he came there, and the Qazi there addressed him by saying, Abul Hasan. Okay, let's continue, and then I'm going to wrap that and tie it how Hazrat Wala explains it. The second point that we learn from this particular ayat is that here the nafs has been called by its title and its kunyat, which and amongst the Arabs is something very, very great, and it's an honor. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna. So a person is not called by his name, but is called by his title. He is his kunyat, his pet name. Here, in simple words, what we are trying to say, is called by the title of nafs mutma'inna. So here Hazrat Wala is saying that when he said Abul Hasan, Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala became upset. And at that time the Qazi thought that, is he upset because I made him stand in front of me like how criminals stand in front of me and I summon them? So Hazrat Ali radiallahu ta'ala said, no, I am upset at this point here that you addressed me by Abul Hasan. And Abul Hasan is my kunyat and my pet name, which people are called by as a sense and a token of honor and respect. So why are you honoring me and respecting me when both are equal, and you're going to listen to the plea and you're going to listen to the proofs and the debate amongst both the parties? How at such a juncture you call me by my pet name? Allahu Akbar. There's a waqia that Hazrat Wala quotes. He says that when Ali radiallahu ta'ala entered the Jamia Masjid in Basra, and then he seen so many people giving waz, and he said to them, but who gave you permission? Impossible, you can't be giving waz without permission. Let me test you, and then if you are fit enough, it's fine, I'll allow you to carry on with your dars here, but if not, I will have to bring your waz to an end. Nevertheless, he comes across Al-Hasan al-Basri, and he asks him, what is the foundation of all good? The essence of all good? And he says, Al-Wara. It is piety. And then he goes on to say, what is the destruction of this matter? And what is the worst thing? He goes on to say, At-Tama'. It is having hopes in all other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or in anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, regarding this here, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahab, whenever Maulana Ali Mia and these great ulama of the time would come, he would read out the mazameen of this nature to them from Al-Qawlul Jameel. He would quote the ibarat and he would go on to say, وَاسْحَبِ النَّاسِ عَلَى شَرِيطَتَيْن, that accompany people, but let it be with two requisites and two conditions. قَطْءُ الطَّمَعِ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَعَمَّا فِي أَيْدِ النَّاسِ, that do not have any hopes, do not attach your hopes to people and whatever they have in their possessions. And after that, the second part is so important. And what is that? وَحُسْنُ الْخُلْقِ مَعَ كُلِّ أَحَدٍ, coming across with people and dealing with them with the best of character. It is greatly and highly possible that if a person is independent and he doesn't have his hopes and his gaze attached to what people have, it is greatly possible that some type of khushki and dryness and an indifferent attitude that may arise and become part and parcel of his character, which is undesired. So Hazrat Shah Sahib then goes on to say, وَحُسْنُ الْخُلْقِ مَعَ كُلِّ أَحَدٍ. Listen, you can't be on this level that you do not have your gaze on the assets and the wealth of people. But remember, it must be coupled with good character. You know, sometimes there's a junior person, but just asking him, how are you? You keeping well? That's enough for them and it pleases them. But seniors, you still got to do this and that and the other. You got to go the extra mile. You know, and that's why here also when people come, then I have this intizam of chai and tea and this and that. For that reason. Okay, another point we learn from this ayat is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises it by being completely and totally peaceful. Praising it by this nafs with this characteristic that it is obedient to Allah and it has handed itself over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we're speaking about being obedient to annihilate yourself completely in front of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then together with that to put your full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now regarding this, Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ahmad Sahib used to say, Jisne mitaya apna naam o nishan, haft aqleem ka bana sultan. The person that had completely erased all his signs, complete and total self-effacement. What about that person? He became the king of the worlds. What about Hazrat Haji Sahib? He used to say, "Main namo nisha mita beta," that I erased all my effects. I humbled myself completely and totally. Shohra uraya mera kisne. I wonder who spread this name of mine through the lands. Allahu Akbar. You know, when I went to Nanota and I seen the people in the hundreds, rather in the thousands that had gathered there, that Nanota itself didn't even see a crowd like that in the recent past. And I'm thinking to myself, what would I talk? And suddenly this malfuz of Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib came into my mind. That on one occasion, myself and Bhai Sahib was together, and he asked Bhai Sahib that, listen, what do I want from you people? And before he could even answer, he gave him the answer. He says, I want this from you people. One is tawazu. If you adopt this particular characteristic, your dealings with people will be rectified. And if you adopt tawakkul and the trust in Allah, then your muamalat and your dealings with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also be corrected. And then I went on to say to them that, look at, this is the place of Nanota and Hazrat Maulana Qasim Sahib. What about him? One day somebody is calling out to him and wants to speak to him, saying to him that, what do you call it? Mauli Sahib. And then after a long time he manages to catch up on him. He said, but I'm calling you so long, Mauli Sahib. He says, oh, I didn't know you're calling me. I don't even understand myself to be a Maulvi. Allahu Akbar. This is how they humble themselves to the greatest extent. And another one there is that on one occasion, Hazrat Nanoti was going on Safar, and Qari Tayyab Sahib's father, Hafiz Ahmad, was together, a little boy at that time. He was going on Safar to Moradabad. And when this thought came to him, a little child is coming with me, and people have compassion towards a certain, a young child, due to which they will start giving gifts and money and this and that. It would be like I'm asking, I've taken this child with, and that is the reason. So at that time, he sends the child back. This was his tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to its highest stage. So what is actually this, what do you call it? This mutma'inna. What is it? The sifat, we're speaking about this ayat. Another point that also comes out is this, al-mutma'in huwal munkhafidu min al-ard. It is that portion of the earth which is low-lying. So when a person lowers himself by means of tawazu, and humility, humbleness, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then praises him that he is happy with him. How Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam actually teaches us, man tawada'a lillah rafa'ahu Allah. Another point also we learn that irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiya, that in there is a ishara, there is a subtle sign and indication that it is not permissible for the nafs ammara and the nafs lawwama to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the returning of honor. Rather, that is specifically for the nafs mutma'inna, because in it there is itminan. And therefore, it will be addressed in this manner, that return to your Rabb. Now, we have permitted for you entry and admission into our grand presence and in for eternity into our gardens and into Jannah. So in all of this here, there is encouragement for the slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reach the stage of nafs mutma'inna. And a person can never reach that stage until or unless he fully starts obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he hands himself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completely and totally. So here, point number 6 that we take out here is irji'i ila rabbiki. Allah ta'ala did not say irji'i ila rabb. Allah did not say irji'i ila Allah. But Allah said irji'i ila rabbiki. In this year, there is a sign that when a person returns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is returning out of the love and compassion of rububiyat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the sustainer, but not from the qahr and the anger and the wrath of uluhiyat. So in this also, there is a echoing, or it's so full of making a person acquainted, because now he's leaving this world and there's so much of honor and love in it as well. So make dua. Inna lillahi ibadan futana طلقوا الدنيا وخافوا الفتنا نظروا فيها فلما علموا أنها ليست لحي وطنا جعلوها لجة واتخذوا صالح الأعمال فيها سفنا. So this dunya, Hazrat Maulana Shah Wasiullah Sahib Hazrat Wala is saying, when he taught us Riyadus Salihin, he told me when he was teaching us this, that note this couplets of down for me, and then he used to keep it at his head side and he would go through it over and over again. Most certainly for Allah, there are certain very intelligent servants. They have abandoned the dunya, rather divorced the dunya, and they fear trials, tribulations and fitnas. When they studied and looked closely to the dunya, they understood it that it is no place of permanent residence for any living person. So what did they then do? They made it, and they understood it to be a huge ocean, this dunya, and they made salih al-a'mal, good deeds in it, a ship, so that they would get their way around. Good deeds it was. There was a Buzruk, in his majlis, he read these couplets in the praise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Muhammadun basharun la kal bashari bal huwa yaqutun bain al hajari. Muhammad is a human, but not just any ordinary human. Rather, he is a great gem just amongst other simple stones. Allahu Akbar. So radiyatan, when a person is returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he goes radiyatan mardiya, that well pleased. A person is well pleased. How is he well pleased? Regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya, concerning the ahkam and the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And mardiya, that Allah ta'ala is well pleased with us, meaning in the akhirat, Allah ta'ala. So radiyatan, we understand it this way, that a person is pleased with the ahkam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here in this dunya, and in the akhirat he will be pleased with the generosity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also we learn from this year that a person will not be able to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except being contented with Allah and being pleased with Allah. And if not, then no. And also we learn from this year that a person cannot be pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the akhirat until he is pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dunya. So the mehnat and the taqaza and the work all starts off here in this dunya already. So when a person completely and totally humbles himself here in this dunya and he chooses to adopt this expression of humility, humbleness, helplessness in this dunya, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him then baqa in the akhirat. When he chooses self-effacement here, then Allah ta'ala lets him live there. Allahu Akbar. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahumma inni as'aluka nafsan bika mutma'inna tu'minu bi liqa'ik wa tarda bi qada'ik wa taqna'u bi 'ata'ik. You know, Hazrat Wala is saying that this is what I speak and this is what I read out to you. This is my nourishment, this is my food, this is my nashta. Allama Ibn Taymiyyah used to sit after the Fajr Salat until the Ishraq Salat, and he used to go on to say, meaning in the remembrance of Allah he used to sit, he would say then, Hadihi Ghadwati, that this is my breakfast. And then he would also go on to say that the day I leave this out, then I would understand weakness in my body. As far as I am concerned, this is an amazing kitab. Nevertheless, let us make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah ta'ala make us ever ready on this path to Him. Make us musta'id. It comes in the hadith that if we just go a handspan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes so much more towards us. Allah ta'ala let us walk this path to Him, and Allah Ta'ala make us reach our destination. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannah wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannah wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal. Allahumma inna nas'aluka al-jannah wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal. Wa na'udhu bika min an-nar wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal. Wa na'udhu bika min an-nar wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal. Wa na'udhu bika min an-nar wa ma qarraba ilayha min qawlin aw amal. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم بحرمة سيد النبي الكريم صلى الله عليه وسلم.